Good evening. I call this meeting to order at 5 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. All directors are present. Approval of the agenda. Mr. Bartz, are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda tonight.
I'll move the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor of the motion to approve the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The agenda is approved. Moving on to public comment. This will be if you do not have a public comment on the water rate study, but anything else that you would like to comment on. So, Mr. Haggard, would you like to make your comment?
Yes, I would.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Haggard, and I've been a customer for 42 years. And every time there is a very substantial amount of rain, the fire hydrant closest to my home gets buried. It's currently buried now, and I had put in a call about 4 or 5 days after these rains ended, and they still haven't dug it out. Many times in the past, I dug it out myself, but I'm just getting a little too old for that. And if my home burns down, it would get really, really ugly. I would like to get results as soon as possible.
What is the location?
It is on Greasewood Road, just west of Eby Road.
Okay.
And the fire hydrant gets buried every time?
What's that?
Every time it floods, the fire hydrant gets buried?
Yes.
Oh, we can flag it then.
Yeah.
It's only happened about 5 or 6 times, but it doesn't happen very often.
So,
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, any other public comment not related to the water rate study? Okay, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
This is kind of like following up on what he said. It kind of, if your property has an easement for the water company, right? I think that's what it's called. Like the road by my house, part of my property is the road itself, and it's called an easement. That's what I was told. But I didn't know if somewhere along the line, somebody told me that it's a water company easement, and they're supposed to maintain the road itself. And just like the other gentleman said, you know, with this flooding, there's always like, you know, major ruts, sediment buildup, stuff like that. I remember like maybe 15 years ago, they did bring a road grader through one time, but that was like one time. So I didn't know for sure. Is this actually part of the agreement, like with homeowners, that these roads are easements and they're to be maintained?
Yes.
necessarily.
Yeah, so I can answer that. The easement allows us to have the water line in the road. There's an easement for the water line. We do not maintain the roads. If there's something that gets either uncovered with the water line where it gets exposed, or in a situation where debris might be up against a fire hydrant, we will come in there and make sure that our property is protected, but we do not maintain the roads. That's a county function, if it's a county maintained road.
All right, okay, just wondering about
Okay.
that because it was just like hearsay. It wasn't actually like a requirement by the water company, I guess. And like I said, the one time they did maintain the road, but I didn't know if they were under on the obligation to maintain the roads where they have easements.
That's, county is, road, maintains roads.
All right, okay, that's
Yeah.
good.
Thank you very much. All right. Any other public comments? And I don't see any online. All right, so we will move on to community reports.
We have Victor Hernandez with Senator Ochoa Bogue's office.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. My it will be brief this evening, the legislative update. We just wanted to give the update that the senator, out of her 19 bills that she had introduced, has actually gotten 5. We just got the news right now that the 5th one has been signed by the governor. So she was able to successfully get 6 bills passed overall through the whole process. Only one of those included a veto by the governor, but the one that the 5th one that she just got signed right now is actually regarding surplus state land. So if there's any surplus land owned by the state of California, they can be able to sell it to nonprofits for the purpose of developing new housing. So overall, very successful legislative term in 2023. And again, if there's anything that we could be able to do to assist the district, always feel free to reach out. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, and I don't see, I see Kathy Hoffman. Do you have anything you would like to say this evening?
I do not, but thank you for asking.
You're welcome. All right, so we will move on to agenda item 3, consent items. Does anyone have any items they would like to pull? All right, if not,
I'll move the consent items.
I'll second it.
thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The items pass. We had no matters removed, so we will move on to number 5, presentations and appointments.
Thank you, Madam President. We have Habib Isaac here tonight, and I wanted to go over the READ study for people who may not have heard it, just a brief overview of where we're at and preceding the public hearing. So Habib, welcome and happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
All right, does that work for you? Can you see it?
Okay, yes. All right, so probably a couple weeks ago, we went through this, so the public meeting, presentation, but then there's also a question about the report, so I felt it'd probably be a little bit better for me to be here in person in case we want to flip-flop and go other different ways with questions. But let me go through the presentation, and some of the stuff would look familiar. And this time around, I also included a print version, so you can see all the different charts that are animated in the presentation. Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right, so, I have to scroll.
Yes. Here.
Oh, yeah.
It's a little wonky in the Zoom presentation, but, all right. You want the next one?
Yes, please.
This one.
So these are your existing rates of today that is being charged to your customers. On the left-hand side is your existing fixed charges, and on the right-hand side are your variable. And then also the very bottom, I just identified that all meters are also charged the Chromium 6 surcharge, which is a constant fee that doesn't change each year. It's just $9.71. Go ahead. And then one thing we want to make sure is look at your existing financials. And what we do is we always look at, how are you looking when you just look at your existing rates and projecting out? But the thing with Prop 218 is you're only allowed to go out and set rates for up to 5 years. So regardless of how well you identify your needs for those 5 years, eventually if you keep looking further out and you don't have any further rate adjustments, it's going to show that eventually your expenses are going to exceed your operating revenues. So what this graph is showing here is just your operating position. This is no capital at all. just O&M personnel, things of that sort. The black trend line is your revenues, and you also see it go up a little bit in 25 and 26 because you do have existing rates that have been previously approved. And then the red trend line with the dashes is your operating expenses. So because the operating revenues is less than expenses, then it shows that difference is a deficit. You're pretty much breaking even in 2024, which is projected at the end of the fiscal year. But again, this is where a lot of our clients' capital costs have increased significantly because the hyperinflationary climate, and then as well as chemicals and energy has been big factors as well in recent times. Next slide.
Can I ask a question there?
Yes, absolutely.
So the red dashed line, is that also include the estimated cost for purchase of water?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does. Yeah, that's considered a operating expense, and your debt's also in here as well. So from the results of this review, I think we might have passed. No? Okay.
That one?
Yes, that one right there. Or do you do the print version?
Yeah, give me one.
Let's do that.
second.
Okay. I know it by heart though, so I could just keep going.
If they have, if the audience has some of the sheets, they can follow it too.
Yeah.
I have someone, I have to stop the share. Give me
Okay.
1 minute, I can get it up. Just 2 seconds.
Yeah. We should be on big page 21 right now.
Sorry, Ken. Yeah, just next slide.
That one.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
exactly.
Go back to the share. And we're back.
Yeah, so then this next chart shows you your capital improvement plan and with how it's being funded. So the light violet in that first year is the debt proceeds of the water's portion share of the Civic Center. So that's funded through the debt. And then the rest of your capital is funded on a pay-as-you-go basis with rate revenue that comes in as well as reserves. Next one. So once we actually identify the operating costs and the capital spending, then we look at how that impacts your reserves because ultimately your capital replacement reserve funds your capital plan. So then that will hit your reserves. You have healthy reserves right now, which shows in 24, even with the capital spending you're doing in this year, you'll be over your minimum requirement. But again, without any type of adjustments, then your capital spending, essentially, most of it is going to come from your reserves that you have available. And then this just shows where what that impact would be on your utility. So ultimately, we want to make sure that your reserve balance doesn't continue to deplete. And again, this is more a function of just the fact that in those outer years, you don't have rates approved. So it's always going to have some type of systematic approach to this. So we want to make sure that you continue to fund your capital plan, but then the reserves are maintained healthy over your minimum requirement. Go ahead. So from the results, we want to make sure we don't have an operating deficit in future years. We want to meet your debt coverage. Capital spending reduced, but still requires the use of reserves. And then, as I mentioned, no longer meeting your minimum once you get to those outer years. So that's what we're going to resolve. Next slide. So with the proposed financial plan to achieve this, go ahead. Oh, I just zoomed. Yeah. Here it is. So now what we're doing is we're just showing those same charts, but we need 16% revenue adjustments to fund the operations of your utility. And then now you'll see that your proposed revenues are exceeding your expenses, and that's going to generate positive net income above your operating expenses that then could go towards your capital spending as well as maintain reserves to maintain it above your minimum. Go ahead. Still same capital plan, nothing changed here. Next. And then now, because we have an influx of revenue coming in from the revenue adjustments, we're able to keep the reserves healthy where they are today and not dip below your minimum and then continue to deplete. Go ahead. And then I just want to give you kind of like a summary of your reserves. You have your operating reserve. That funds the daily operations of your utility. And because of that, it's always recommended for utilities to have 90 days of operating expense in liquid cash on hand. So that's 1.9 million. Capital reserve, ideally you want 2 years of your annual depreciation. The reason why you don't want 1 year is because your depreciation value would not be the cost that you would incur today to replace it. So doing 2 times that would keep it at an amount that's really more close to replacement cost. But ultimately, you want to have like a full year's worth of funding available for your capital plan. So you don't have to wait for revenues to come in to continue with your capital scheduling or even awarding contracts. Rate stabilization reserve, that's a function of how much rate revenue comes in, and 5% of rate revenue is common. That would be $400,000. Just disaster reserve, this is always good to have. Some agencies don't have it at all, but what you want to have is another bucket of funds where if you see a system failure, it's now not causing you to go into your capital replacement reserve that's more for ongoing scheduling and common repair and replacement based on the useful life, that you then have other funds available to address a failure, a pipe burst, things of that sort. So ultimately, with all three, it's around $9.7 million is your minimum requirement. Go ahead. And then this is new. We didn't show this one last time, but because there's some new board members, I just want to go over this. Prop 218 is what we have to make sure we're in compliance with. It governs all rates and fees. So what you have to make sure is, one, the AC cannot collect revenue beyond what is necessary to provide service. So that's very important on this, is where you don't want to intermix your funds between your park enterprise and your water utility. You got to make sure that they're separate so they're not commingled. Revenues derived by the charge should not be used for any other purpose. I would say that's kind of similar with the park thing, but also for cities when you do like cost allocation plans, they want to make sure that it's just funding for central services and not like police, fire, things of that sort. And then the amount of the fee may not exceed the proportional cost of the service to the parcel. That's the crux of why we're here. We have to make sure that it's proportional. We have a nexus to the rates and the basis of what makes up the fixed charges, what makes up the variable rates, and why. And if you have tiers, what's the reason for those tiers? What's the purpose of the breakpoints, the rationale for those? And then how are those rates justified? And they must be cost-based. So if any of the things are incorrect or inaccurate, we're on the hook for that, and that's why you hire us, to make sure that we're in compliance with these statutes of the state. No charge may be imposed for any service unless that service is actually used or immediately available. So a good example of that is everyone gets charged fixed charges, irrespective of they have a home already developed or not. If they have a meter in there, it's available, it's ready to go, so everyone pays for that. And then a written notice needs to be sent out before you can have this. This public hearing had to be sent out 45 days prior, just so the public has time to review and ask questions or get a copy of the report. And then also have one other thing, Government Code 53756. That's pass-through provisions where you are going to be incurring, replacement water costs, lease water. So if Mojave ever increased those rates, you're not in the business to try to assume what those rates would be. You don't govern over their decisions. So then the pass-through provision of the Government Code allows you to just pass through any increases from a third-party wholesaler, such as Mojave. So then they increase it, you just pass it on to your customers without having to go through this whole Prop 218 process. Next slide. Any questions on that? Because that's the bread and butter of why you have these rate hearings and why you have this cost of service report. All right, so I'll continue to show the cost of service analysis. So this is what, the judges want to see in the courts of law is what makes up your rates. And this shows, all right, here are the fixed components to make up your fixed charges, which is account services. So think about that as just to have an active account, you have costs incurred, such as billing, meter readings, things of that sort. It doesn't matter the size of the meter, it's just to have, to have an active account, customer service, right? Meter capacity, those are costs that it's an impact on the system. So for example, different size meters, they paid a different amount when they came online. So then they pay a higher operational cost for like capital, things of that sort. That is a function of the capacity that they take up in the system. So a 4-inch meter should pay more than a 3/4 inch meter. And then you have your Chromium 6, which you're aware, that's a separate surcharge that is constant until the Chromium 6 improvements are fully funded. So that's ongoing and that's not changing. And then on the variable side, we have purchased water, which is the leased water from Mojave. That's not going to be incurred until it shows that no dollar amount there until 2027? 6.
26.
I think 6.
2026.
Thank you, 2026. Because right now you do have groundwater, you are adjudicated basin, but you have carryover water right now that could cover the what would be replacement water. So that carryover is going to cover the next 2 years. So basically you have groundwater, your groundwater free production allowance plus your carryover makes it no need for replacement lease water for the 2 years. And then delivery, that's just getting it to the end pipe, from the pipes to the end users. Peaking, that is associated with how different customers use the water system at different times of the year. Summer is where you're going to have the most increase in your uses because of water needs, not just for indoor, but outdoor plants, things of that sort. And then water efficiency, that's just a component where because you're trying to mitigate the high users and bring that usage down, then we're able to isolate those components and charge it to the higher usage, which in this case would be in tier 2. So that gives you a sense of the rationale of what we're working with, and I'll continue with that rationale as we go through this presentation. But ultimately, your fixed cost recover 56% of all your revenue, and then the variable is 44%, which is right in line with where you are today. Next slide. So here are the proposed fixed charges for 2024. We identified or highlighted the 1-inch meters because that's where most of your customers, the meter size that they have. And then we show your existing rates and the difference that you'll see there. And then from there, we can go to that next slide. And this is where we're doing some changes into your rate structure on the variable side. Your adjudicated basin, your free production allowance is continuing to be ratcheted down by Mojave. So because you only have so much groundwater and everyone has equal rights to that groundwater, we're recommending that this proposed change is that everyone is subject to 2 tiers. Tier 1 is your groundwater production that's available, that everyone gets equally, and then tier 2 is lease water, where you're going to have to incur to cover the demand, which is your demand of your customers is more than the amount of groundwater you have available. However, for the first 2 years, you're going to be able to offset that lease water with carryover water. So tier 1 again would be your free production allowance, and then that is changing every single year. So we usually we do a cost of service for year 1, and then years 2 through 5, we say the cost of service constant, and we just increase the rates based on the revenue adjustment, which is 16%. But in this case, because your water supply and your allotment is changing every year, your tier 1 has to change. So we did a cost of service for every single year of the 5 years to model that accordingly. And then tier 2 would be anything over that production for each respective year. So what I like about this is now
And the values for those tiers?
yes, and we have them right here.
Okay.
And then what's nice about this rate structure is that it correlates well with what's going on with your system and your water rights. So it ties directly to that, and it can provide good messaging to your customers. So here's 2024. Your current groundwater production available with the carryover is going to allow these 2 years to have the same tier 1 allotment of 11 units of water. and then everything over that would be tier 2. But because you don't need to incur lease water for these 2 years, the water supply cost is exactly the same. And that's, again, because of the carryover you have available. So there's no change in those 2 tiers.
Just describe how you arrived at the 11.
Oh, sure. So the 11 units is taking the available groundwater net of water loss and then spreading that over all accounts evenly.
Dividing it by all
the active accounts, correct. So that's how we get to 11. And then, so the only thing that's really different between these 2 years for the first 2 years, or these 2 tiers for the first 2 years, is the peaking and the water efficiency. That's the only price differential that you'll see between those 2. Next slide. But then when we get into 26, 27, 28, now you're going to see that your water supply, groundwater free production allowance is going down each year. So then the amount available in tier 1 is also going down. It's going from 11 by the time we get to 2028 to 7 units. And then I'm also highlighting that now you don't have carryover water anymore that could offset the lease water. So then the tier 2 water supply component now has a higher cost to provide that service to your customers.
Yeah, just a quick comment too on the lease water. There's 2 major producers in the basin besides the CSD. One was the dairy, Hediga Dairy down in El Mirage, and Ducommon. Neither of those entities are producing water, and they are going to have water available, and we think it's going to be a favorable rate. It's definitely going to be less than Mojave. So as we go into those years, 2026, 27, and at least for a few years, I think we can probably get water for maybe 20% of the cost of what we would be paying through Mojave. So we will be pursuing that as we go forward and trying to line those leases up for years in advance, maybe do some long-term leasing. Because really there's nobody else in the basin that can use that water. So we are the only outlet for that. But they also know that we might have to pay against Mojave, so we'll have to play the market there. But I think we can get reasonable rates for those.
Do we have any idea how many acre feet are available for lease?
Yes, there's probably, between the 2 after ramp down, it's probably going to be close to 1,000 acre feet. Maybe a little bit less as we get ramped down further. But it's, so when the district was formed, I think we had about 1,300 acre feet of water rights. We purchased an additional 3,000 acre feet of water rights over the years, which has got us to the point where we're at now, and we don't have to lease from Mojave, which is saving us probably $750,000 a year, and has been for the past 10 years.
If we lease through Mojave or through the dairy or Ducommon, does Mojave put a percentage deduction on that lease amount that we can use from them?
Just the amount that's ramped down.
Okay.
So if they had 1,000 acre feet and they're at 50%, they would now have 500 acre feet they could lease.
Okay.
Whatever the free production allowance.
Yeah, they're under the same rules we are.
So that begs the question, go ahead.
Is there any chance that we can challenge the number they want to reduce it to because of the shift in the basin? Is
Absolutely.
there any challenge of that?
One of the things we'll be looking at, and I know engineering will be looking at that, we're going to bring back some numbers, is with the reduced production in the basin. Ducommon hasn't been producing for a number of years, and they have about 700 acre feet of water. The dairy out there really shut down operations a year ago, and the only outlet they had for water was to the marijuana farms. I mean, they had water trucks in there 24 hours a day pulling water out of there. And as of right now, they've shut down their production on that. I would say that the marijuana grows are about 95% eradicated. And the Met team is aggressively still going after the few that are still around. And that should really take away the rest of the market for that. So I don't think they'll be producing. And there's nobody that would even be able to use that amount of water. There's just no other large consumers.
So is that a discussion we'll start with Mojave Water Agency?
Absolutely. Good. Yeah, because we want to look at the balance of the basin once you take their production out of it, right. And we'll look at the production numbers where we're at this year, and we'll have ongoing conversations. It's getting better with Mojave. They have different management, different board, and I think they're a little more open to what we think is the reality.
Perfect. Can't wait.
And with the Prop 218, we can never go higher than the proposed rates that we have in this packet at this time. But what you're saying is there's a possibility that we could reduce this if we're not paying as much to lease water.
That's correct. And the board will look at that on an annual basis and make a determination.
So
And
that
you
was
also
my
have the
question.
pass-through as well, that where you can actually go higher than these rates for costs from, say, Mojave or another water provider that you're getting leased water from.
So if there's a reduced expense based on, in a couple of years, do you have some good type of formula or percentage that we could look at that we wouldn't have those costs?
Yes, so one of our deliverables for every study is the financial plan and rate model that we develop, and that's provided to the district staff. But we also do annual updates for probably a majority of our clients, because they want to see if they can outperform what was noticed. Because what we know is we have to be conservative, right? We can't assume there's growth occurring, things of that sort. And then we usually would do it part of the budgetary process. Takes us 30 days. We then update everything, new budgets, new actuals, new reserve balances, the new costs, and then we look at what percent do you have to go up to based on what was noticed. Do you have to go all the way up to the 100% was noticed, or can you go 90? Can you go 80%? And then sometimes a lot of boards or city councils, they like hearing what our review is, so it's not something coming from staff or we're just concurring what staff may have ran. And we do that for like 10% of what like a full rate study is. So usually it's around 6,000-7,000 a year instead of 50. So it works out pretty well.
So in 2 years, when we need to start looking at possibly purchasing of water, and we don't have to do it, then we could use your firm to look at that.
Absolutely.
On an annual basis to see what the reduction could be.
And we have some agencies where they do all the updates and then they just send it to us to review it and make sure they did it correctly. But usually when they start doing it every year, and then they get more comfortable, and then we just do a QC on it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and my goal would be to negotiate rates to where we're paying maybe 25% of what Mojave is charging. And if we can continue on with that for maybe another 4 or 5 years, that just helps the customers all the way around.
That'd be great, since water is a pass-through cost. That'd be a direct correlation to rates and drop them.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Pass-throughs are if they go up or if they go down as well. Like Metropolitan Water District, one of their fixed charges is readiness to serve, but then that is also the calculations that also takes into account their standby charge. That's in all 3 counties. So a lot of agencies that have a lot of development going on, their credit for the standby charge that they're paying to Metropolitan actually makes their readiness to serve come down. So we would actually pass through reduced rates on an annual basis.
Awesome.
Next, we go back, I think. We were here, so let's go next one. Yeah, so now since we went through the 24 fixed charges and the 24 variable rates, this is now showing the 5 years of fixed charges. And then you go to the next slide. So this is just more like a leave behind of what those rates are. And then the 5 years of the variable rates. And you'll see that it definitely ticks up when you get to 26 in terms of the difference between Tier 1 and Tier 2's rates. And that's a function of that leased water.
So any reduction in our water costs would essentially mostly fall into Tier 2.
Yeah, I would say so. That's correct.
Okay.
Unless your energy costs go down, which is
so
really
that begs a
unlikely.
question, if we reduce, let's say you have 16% for 5 years.
Yes.
If we don't have this cost and it's reduced by 10%, that's a whole system wide.
Yes. Yeah, another thing too.
So how does that work?
So what we would do is either one, you just reduce that Tier 2 rate for that year, or you just reduce the revenue adjustment that's needed pro rata over all your rates to maintain that cost of service analysis we did. So you could kind of do it either way.
So it wouldn't fall into the tier one?
No, it wouldn't not if you do it based on just if you're just doing the water supply cost, then no, it would not.
Well, because that's where most of the projected savings
Yes.
probably would fall. So,
Right, that's
so it
correct.
would be in tier two.
Yes.
Okay.
And then another thing that could happen is the ramp down changes. So then your tier one allotment increases. That's another scenario that could occur.
But if we acquire rights, wouldn't our free production
Yes.
allowance go up?
Yes.
Which could then translate to tier one if we wanted it.
Yeah, tier one being higher allotment.
I guess we could move it to, yeah. we
Yeah, increasing allotment is really providing a savings to your customers, so you could do that without
Okay.
any noticing. But if you're acquiring, water rights, we didn't account for any type of acquisition cost, so that would have to balance.
Yeah, no, it is water rights, but if it's leased, it's just a reduction in cost. But in any one year, that would give us an increase in water available, right? So I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, and when, you have to keep in mind, when we're purchasing let's say we want to purchase 1,000 acre feet of water rights, and everybody's used to getting, $5,000 an acre foot for their acre foot of water. But if you're ramped down to 50% or 25%, which, Mojave is heading in that direction, your $5,000 worth of water, they're going to say, well, it's worth more because there's not as much available, but you're only getting 25 or 50% of the $5,000. So there's a lot of negotiations and a lot of understanding that has to be between the parties involved, with the people who have the water rights and the people who would be interested in purchasing the water rights, while looking at the cost of water with Mojave and how many years is that going to take to break even. A lot involved with that.
So if we leased 1,000 acre feet, could that be spread over both tiers, that 1 year?
Yeah, which then becomes part of your
Because it's an
pre-production.
additional,
Well, the way we have your rate structure set up, I would say additional lease, if you lease additional water that increases your free production, I would increase the tier one allotment.
okay, so it would fall into both tiers. Well, that's what I was just wondering.
Yeah, I
If
mean, I guess
we have
your-
more water available, it's not our water, but for 1 year it is.
Your tier two would be triggered at a higher level of usage.
So in return, we end up with a lower bill for the same
Yes,
amount of water usage.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, exactly.
That's what the ultimate result would be.
Yes, yes, that's a good way to put it, for sure.
And that is our goal as the staff, is to get as much water as we possibly can at the cheapest rate possible to pass those savings on to the customers. We're not like the county. The county didn't care. They just went out and leased whatever they needed to from Mojave. And unfortunately, we got stuck with that year one.
All right. I appreciate all the questions as well.
By any chance, will we have any reference to where our rates will be compared to other people in the valley? In this,
That's something we could do.
but for future, possibly have that included in it, because it'd be nice to see where we fall in relation to others.
Yeah, we just have to give us what agencies you want us to compare it to.
We pulled that data. The issue is, many of the other agencies up here are at the end of their 5 years, and they're starting the process to go through a rate study. So it's not necessarily an apples for apples comparison. And so we're waiting. I mean,
Might
we
be
can,
for 1 year.
we can show you for now,
Probably
which
not.
will be at the higher end, but they're gonna start, their rate studies, some this year, some next year. And so it'll be more applicable to what's happening right now.
Yeah, the
and
thing with their-
you'll see those numbers during our budget hearings and budget meetings.
Okay.
You'll see that. We always include that information, and we should have some updated information by then. And I can still say that we're the cheapest one here in this side of the valley.
And I would say we've done some rate surveys recently for other agencies, and one thing they point out is, oh, well, they're in their 5th year of a rate study. 5 years ago in the rate study, there wasn't, this hyperinflation it didn't exist. So then their rates are really going to recalibrate pretty high because they need to take that into account now. And I think we just have maybe one more slide, or okay. I don't think I showed that yet. And then here's the customer impact. I apologize, I can't see the percent, but it's right around the 14, I believe, right? It's around 14%. So even though the revenue adjustment is 16, the actual impact on the bills is 14. And that's mostly a function of all customers now subject to tier 1 and tier 2. So then that brings like your single family customers down just a little bit in terms of the percent impact of the bill. And that concludes my presentation, but if you have any questions, any other questions, or if you have questions about the report is your administrative record that gives you justification for the rates that you potentially would be approving today.
All right, thank you very much. Any
you
other
so much.
questions? No? No? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we will move on to an agenda item 6A, public hearing on proposed water rates. I declare that the public hearing on proposed water rate increase and water rate schedule is now open at 5:41 PM. May we have the secretary's report, please?
Yes, at this time, I would like to report that as of this time now, the district has received 11 total written protests, objections, and comments on the proposed water rate increase and water rate schedule.
Thank you. May we have the attorney's report, Mr. Kennedy?
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Notice of hearing was mailed out on August 25th, 2023 to approximately 7,200 metered customers, including tenants and property owners, in compliance with Proposition 218. The notice of hearing was also posted in the district office and on the district website on August 25th, 2023. Therefore, the district has complied with all the legal requirements for this hearing within the manner and time specified by Proposition 218.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. May we have the staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. The district provides water service to approximately 7,200 customers. The district's water system includes 353 miles of pipeline that range in diameter from 4 inches to 16 inches. Customers are primarily served from groundwater from the local aquifer through wells within the Mojave Basin adjudication and Antelope Valley adjudication. The district periodically reviews water rates to determine if revenues are sufficient to pay the cost and operate the water utility and to build, repair, and upgrade infrastructure. The district engaged IB Consulting Incorporated to prepare the district's required water rate study. The purpose of the rate study is to develop a financial plan with associated rates and charges designed to ensure revenues are sufficient to fund the ongoing operating and capital costs necessary to operate the water department, while meeting the financial requirements and goals set forth by the district. As a government enterprise, the district's water utility is a not-for-profit company. Also, water revenues do not provide funding for governmental fund activities such as parks and recreation. The district's most recent water rates were adopted in December 2021. Since then, the district has experienced an increase in operating costs, primarily due to hyperinflation. For example, a fire hydrant was approximately $2,300 in 2020. The same part in 2022 was $4,000. Since 2022, the cost has further increased to $5,200 as quoted this month. Extraordinary increases have impacted all materials and services, such as electricity required to operate the water utility. Going back to even some of the pipelines that we put in, the cost of pipe has doubled in the past few years, to where you're $60 a foot for pipe that in the past had been $25 a foot. The district is also preparing for increased water costs resulting from ramp down of the district's free production allowance, or the district's ability to pump groundwater without paying replacement water costs to the water master. While the district has acquired approximately 5,000 acre-feet of water rights in the Mojave Water Agency service area, with production ramp downs implemented by the Mojave, the district's free production allowance for fiscal year 2024 is 2,518 acre-feet and will reduce to 1,582 acre-feet by fiscal year 2028, resulting in the necessity to purchase replacement water from Mojave Water Agency. To ensure the proportional share of water costs are allocated fairly, a new tier structure based on the free production allowance has been recommended for all customer classes. This will reduce the number of tiers from 3 to 2 and will remove commercial, institutional, and industrial commercial customer classes. The Chromium 6 surcharge will remain at $9.61 per month and will expire in the fiscal year 2031 if the maximum contaminant level set by the state is 10 parts per billion or higher, and project cost projections remain within budget.
Thank you, Mr. Bartz. At this time, we will open the public hearing for public comment. That would be you.
Thank you so much, Madam President and the board, and members of the board. I really appreciate having the chance and the opportunity to be here today. My name's Nord Imbroden. Likewise, this is my 42nd year on Zone L water and then the CSD water, and I've enjoyed the benefits of living in the high desert and being a part of the community. I'm a college professor at Victor Valley College, and I'm also retired, so my income is kind of fixed. And I wanted to speak today, and actually I got so excited about your presentation. And thank you. Your name's Habib? Yes. Yes, thank you so much. And I can see that you're doing the right thing, certainly by looking at the presentation and hiring the right firm to help you understand the things that are happening. Here's what I want. Right here. So I brought in one of my water bills, and this is Mr. Bartz. Don is an old friend of mine. We worked together at the college, and I have the greatest respect for him and the things he's done for us over these years. And to be able to see the future, to see that getting hold of those water rights, particularly at the ranch down there, that he thought to get that going and make that happen, and that we've all benefited from that. And I appreciate your concern as the board. I hear you talking about how important it is for us to be good servants of the customer and to be able to serve them at the least possible cost, the water that they have. All of Southern California is a desert. Basically all of California almost is a desert, right? And much of the central, the Owens Valley and that are deserts. And we only live here by having water. And our little community of Piñon Hills was Desert Springs at one point. And so it was wrapped around and was built there because of the water that's there. We also have an understanding that water is necessary for all of life. It's necessary. It's not a privilege. It's not something that we can, like food, we can not go out to dinner and we can save some money. But water, we have to pay for it. It's for our animals, our horses. It's for our trees and our plants. And it's for us. Without it, we only live 2 or 3 days. And we need to have water. And so we have a lifestyle here in our community. It's a hostile environment. And we have trees to break the wind. We have trees to provide shade on our houses, and to actually help us with the global warming situation. The trees provide an intake of carbon dioxide, and they provide cooling of the Earth's surface. And so all those things are important. And what I notice in my community, I live up on Green Road, is that myself and my neighbors were losing our trees. And we're losing them because we can't afford, even on a drip system, we can't afford the water and that. And so I see the brown trees and even our native trees. The name of our community, Piñon Hills, is from the pinyon pine. And those trees I have to water and during the drought that we have had. And otherwise I've lost those trees, those native trees, and they take so long to grow. Now, if we really wanted to find the villain here, I heard the name, it was that we have hyperinflation. You have hyperinflation, you have expenses, your pipes doubled in price, our food doubled in price too. Our water, the water proposal that you're putting together for us, it doubles my cost in 5 years. It doubles my cost on my meter in 5 years. I didn't take my last two bills, Don, because I know they were abhorrent of what normally is there. But I did take the July bill, and I looked at my bill for my main residence house, and it was $135, $135.80. And when I get to year 5, based on the meter has gone up, the meter costs have gone up, the tiers have changed, so the tier will drop from 900 cubic feet to 700 cubic feet. So that cost will drop that portion into tier 2. I do like tier 3 disappear, that's great, but my normal bill puts me right at the top of tier 2 right now. So what that means is that I'll be paying more in the tier 2 area, and it's gone up 202%. By then, 202%. Now, I don't think my income's going to go up 202%, and all the other expenses that we have are troublesome. And I know your costs have gone up, will go up considerably. It seems that maybe one answer would be, I'm not sure why Mojave Water Agency takes money from us. That would be one answer. Okay. And I know the folks at Mojave Water Agency, and or some folks at Mojave Water Agency, and I just feel that the water used to belong to the people. And then after 70, whatever, when the last well we could have, then the water belonged to the CSD, belonged to the county, the CSD now. And it doesn't really belong to you, it still belongs to the people. The water belongs to the people. But now we have Mojave Water Agency, and they think that they need to control the water and the amount we take out of the aquifer. And I can understand it. I mean, we don't want to have Barstow dry up, or, but to me, we're spending money that we shouldn't have to spend. And I'm hoping that we can find a solution to that. Now, this is a really nice thing you put out. And so I was able to do all my calculations based on this. Is this something you did for it? Yeah, for the district. The district did this? Well, it's a nice brochure on it, and I really appreciate that. The thing, though, that I see about it that seems odd is that you showed, you represented it as this will be your rate if you have these categories, and your rate will go up 16% or something in my category. Let me see here. 15.6% maybe, right? So my rate will go up 15.6% this next year, starting in November, I understand. And that's, you could swallow that. That's palatable. But I just want you to know, when you calculate this out, based on several factors that are going on, and I know you have lots of parts, you have lots of parts that are moving. One of the factors is that for some reason you you're changing the tiers as we go along. And I know, my understanding or my thought was that, well, tier 3 is we don't want you to use that much water. So we're going to almost double it when you go to tier 3. And I feel like that was not the best way to do it, but that's okay. But now we're going to get rid of that, so that's good. But they're changing the amount of water that you allow in there. So, for example, next year you're going to allow 1,100 cubic feet, excuse me, in tier 1 instead of 9, and that's a good thing. And then in year 2, 2025, you're going to allow 11, and that's a good thing. And then we go back to 9, and then 8, and then 7. And I feel that this proposal is a little like putting a frog in a pot of water. And we're going to have cold water, and the frog's in there, and we're going to turn the heat up a little bit, and the frog is going to be okay that first year. And the frog's going to be getting warm the second year. And by the time we get to the 5th year, well, you know what happens to the frog. And it's going to happen to us. So we are in a dilemma. I see exactly where you are. You're where I am. We don't have enough money. Our costs have doubled. Our food has doubled. I have a little business up here. My products, many of them are 200% up. 200% up just in a year. And I'm trying to do the same thing you're doing, to keep my customers at the minimum price I can sell my product. And we're struggling. I looked up a water bill, and it was a Proposition 1, I believe, 8 years ago, a little over 8 years ago now. And we voted for that. I voted for that. That's all I can say. But two out of every 3 people voted for it. They voted it in. It was to build reservoirs. It was to dam some of the areas to have recreational reservoirs, to have water in drought years. 8 years later, how many of those reservoirs got built? That's correct. 0 reservoirs got built. 0 dams got built. There is a deal for the Antelope Valley to put in a water supply, to put in a reservoir and do that. I don't know if it's underground or above ground that they're planning. 0 of those. And they're real excited in this article that I read from the LA Times. This was in January of this year. They're real excited because after 8 years, they're almost ready to start one project. One project. And so I would like to request, I know, Mr. Bartz, I know that you probably have colleagues in Sacramento that you have to go meet with, or you enjoy meeting with, I'm not sure.
I don't know about enjoying.
Okay, but I would like to challenge you with helping to move those things forward. We watched in this last storm, we watched as all of this wonderful water that we got, more than we've seen in 10, 15 years, all of this wonderful water run to the ocean. Now, we have a little advantage on our side, right? Because it runs into our aquifer. But that still doesn't help us when we have the Mojave Water Agency asking for more fees. It doesn't help us in general in California when we don't build what the people voted for. Where the money, they spent 1/3 of the money. They did some drainage ditches or something. They did something. I'm sure it was useful. We're talking, that was $7.5 billion. I keep playing the lottery and I see the $1 billion thing, but I don't win. So, but I don't know what $1 billion is. I can see $1 million now, but I can't really fathom $1 billion, and I can't fathom $7.5 billion. So I'm asking if you could carry the message forward that we need to look for the future. We have water now. We have our reservoirs have filled up, but we let go. I think the one project that they started, they said 320,000 acre feet went past that project in the last storm. 320,000 acre feet. And just picture California as a whole, how much ran to the ocean. We have water problems in the Central Valley, where our crops come from. We have water problems everywhere. Just now in Orange County, there's rumor that they're going to put in a desalination plant and that it's approved and ready to go. And we have a whole ocean right there that could be tapped into and to provide us clean water. But our state seems to be on a mission to take the things that we have to buy, that we have to have, and take them away from us and charge us a high price for them. And I'm not talking to this board and to Mr. Bartz. I'm not talking to you that you're doing this. You're trying to keep our organization, trying to keep our water system running. And I understand that. But I think it's very important for us. 11 people said that this wasn't acceptable. And I think that this is a little deceptive, the way that it was printed and the way it was done, to show that 16% is here and not show that 202% is here. 202% is a lot. And I'm not sure what can be done. I drive frequently in the Owens Valley, and I know from the 1900s when they took, the Department of Water and Power took all the water. And they did it deviously. They took it by having ranchers that individuals that appeared as ranchers were going to buy the ranches to make ranches, right? To keep the ranches going. And they bought it for the Department of Water and Power. And they've closed it off, and that land is not accessible. The towns like Olancha are a ghost town. And that was a booming in those days. That was one of the picks for the state capital, Olancha, if you can believe that. And now it's just signs hanging by one hook. So I don't want Piñon Hills and Phelan to be signs hanging by one hook. I don't want our property values going down for us because we can't get water, or the water is so expensive that we can't afford it. I want us to find solutions to the big problem. And the big problems are at the state level. The big problems are at the Mojave Water Agency level. And you have a big job to do. And I'm proud of what you're doing. I just hope you can help us, and that you really look at these numbers as how they affect the people of our town. And thank you so very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nord, thank you. And I would like to invite you to Mojave Water Agency meetings. There's going to be a lot of meetings that occur over the next 6 months, over the next year, regarding the ramp down for this area. We've been asking for years for them to take a fresh look at the condition of the basin. Is it dropping? Is it being stable?
Right.
And Ms. Hoffman, who's on the line tonight, just heard everything that you said. And she is our representative for Mojave Water Agency. And I believe you know Kathy Hoffman too.
Yes.
And she would love to have your support coming to the Mojave Water Agency meetings and stand up and speak just like you did tonight, respectfully and thoughtfully. It was, I think, very good.
I would really like to do that, so just let me know. And thank
Okay.
you so much. Thank you so very much for what you do for us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So can we put you in the yes category now?
Yes.
All right. Do we have any other members of the public that have a public comment at this time?
Hi, everyone. My name is Richard. I've never been to a meeting before. It's the first time. I've always wanted to be here, but one thing or another kept me from coming out. And I had a question on the chrome rate charge. When did that come into effect, actually?
Okay, the chrome rate has been in effect for, I believe, about 5 years now.
2016, I believe.
2016. And originally, the chromium 6, the state had set the rate or the maximum contaminant level for chromium at 10 parts per billion. Nationwide, it's 100 parts per billion. California has been 50 for a number of years. We came up with a project at that time which started out at $17 million. And it involved over 10 miles of pipeline, rehabbing some of the wells at the dairy to move water up into the upper parts of the area where we serve the people. That rate was initially for the construction part of that. It would have gone up at some point once the construction was completed because we were going to be pumping the water several hundred feet in elevation from the other side of the valley all the way up into here. Over the past couple of years, since we had a reprieve on the 10 parts per billion, we were averaging about 14 parts per billion on our wells on average. What staff has done over the past few years, we've done zone testing on our wells. We've blocked off some of the zones. We've changed some of the pumping habits. We've added additional storage and also wells in chromium 6 free zones, which has allowed us to kind of a sunset for the chromium 6 project without having to increase that rate. So it started out at 17 million. With the inflation that we'd be seeing right now, you'd probably be well over 20 to 25 million dollars. So we still have that. We are not raising the rate from what the initial construction costs were, and we believe that we will not have to increase that rate. We think we're good with that, even though it is ongoing for a period of time.
And the chromium contamination, is that just natural?
It is naturally occurring.
It's not coming from industry or
It's
something?
not coming from industry.
Here, it's not.
Yeah. Other
In
places,
Barstow it was.
Hinckley, yeah.
Yeah, Hinkley it was.
Yeah. They were, I believe it was 23,000 parts per billion or something like that. I mean, it was very, very off the charts.
I was just curious, in case, like, are we being charged for somebody who contaminated the water supply, or is it just naturally occurring?
Here it's naturally occurring. It's only on the west end of along the county line, basically. And so we've moved the wells around, put the newest well, I believe, has 0 or less than.
Yeah. It's
But
very, very low.
It's what we got from the county that those wells were okay because it was 50 parts per billion. And because of Aaron Brockovich, it became we got to do something. And so the state wanted to move it to fit to 10 originally. So we had to start. We were basically told, we had to either wellhead treat it, find the least expensive. We had two options: either bring water up from El Mirage area, hence the 17 million, or treat it at the wellhead, and that was much more expensive. So
Yeah, we don't like the state regulations any more than anybody in the community, and we have so many regulations that we don't have a choice. Some people say, well, you need to ignore that. Well, which laws do we choose to ignore and which ones do we choose to abide by? If we don't follow the laws, the state would come in and take over the district and you'd be doing it anyhow. So we've done, I think, our due diligence, keeping the cost down as much as possible, even with the state regulations that we have to deal with, including Mojave Water Agency. If they hadn't ramped us down, we're at 50% right now. If they hadn't ramped us down, we wouldn't be having a lot of this discussion. We would have enough water available for the community that's been paid for over the years and developed with production.
So the state required you to ramp down?
Mojave Water Agency is the water master for the area, which is a state agency. It's a state water contractor. They are in charge of the basin, which is the entire area, goes all the way out to Yucca Valley, Barstow, Hinckley, Victorville, and there's a number of basins that feed into the basins, and so they are the ones who control, which is water master, and they control how much water can be extracted out of the ground while not causing the groundwater to decline. So basically, they want 100 gallons of water coming into the basin and 100 gallons coming out. They don't want 100 coming in and 500 coming out. We do not necessarily agree with their assumptions that they've made, and we continually fight with them, and we're always looking for people who want to join in on that. And we think that there's been some changes, positive changes in their board and management over the past year or two, to where maybe we can get a fresh look at some of these idiotic regulations.
Okay. When I moved here in 1998, by the way, when did PPH CSD, when did they take over?
2008.
2008? Okay. When I moved here in 98, my bill was $25 and it was bi-monthly. So roughly $14 a month. And now it's about $55 a month. And my consumption hasn't gone up. I mean, the cost of my water is maybe $6 according to the bill, and the rest is just charges. As this gentleman said, we definitely concerned how long is this going to go on, and how many flyers were sent out? You said how many flyers were sent out for this meeting?
Well, there are 7,200 accounts, and there's also renters and property owners that they go to.
All right.
It goes to everybody.
So I thought there'd be people around the block, have these meetings ever led to a decrease in the customers' bills? Like, this is for a proposed increase, but have they never not increased after one of these meetings? Has there ever been a meeting where the purpose of the meeting was to discuss the increase in upcoming water bills, but has there ever been a meeting in the past where the bill didn't increase?
Well,
Hopefully, yes.
yeah, there has been meetings in the past. The board has an option of looking at the rates each year, with the maximum increase that can be levied on a bill. And in the past, the board's looked at that and reduced the amount and not gone the full amount. So they do look at that every year. And as Habib said, they will come in and we will have an analysis done of where we're at. Going back to the county, when we took over from the county, We had to spend millions and millions of dollars. We rehabbed every well that we had, every booster station that we had, and we actually started cleaning our tanks. So the county was just here, they just ran it on a shoestring. They didn't maintain anything, and eventually you have to make the improvements to the system, or you're gonna have a bigger bill at the end. And that is part of the reason why you have increases from what we had at the county, because this is not the same system that it was back in 2005, 2006, prior to the CSD being formed.
All right, well, those were the only topics I was interested in. Like I said, I've never been to a meeting before to see what goes on or how it's run. But I thank you for your time. It was an education being here. But like I said, well, it seems like the rest of the country is being asked to do more with less. And I don't know if there's anything in your power to maybe cut waste or anything, look over your operation. Maybe there's something you could do. Like a lot of people, they're cutting back at the grocery store, they're cutting back their expenses and everything else. But I just kind of ask, like, look over your whole operation and see if there's things you can do, because everybody's getting hit hard. My electric bill is unbelievable from what it was a year or two ago. And I'm not using any more electricity. It's just, they just bumped up the rates so much. But like I said, the whole country seems to be suffering and being asked to do more with less. So in your calculations and your graphs and all that other stuff, and just ask, see if there's places that you can cut, cost and help the consumer out, the customer as much as you can. But thank you. I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Thank you for
I
coming
would like
out.
to extend the same offer to you that we did to Mr. Broden. Come to Mojave Water Agency meetings. They need to hear this. They are in control of a lot of what we do. And we run as efficiently as we can. Here's a great example. When we took over from the county, they had, I believe it's 33 full-time equivalent employees that you were paying for to run this district. Here we are, 15 years later, we have 32 employees. I'm 27 employees. We're doing even better. We've already cut some. I don't know where he came up with 32, but
Extra people.
we won't talk about that. No, but we do try to run as efficiently as possible. And what I've told our employees and the discussions of the board, we're not the county. You can come in here and you can talk to the board. You can come in and talk to me in my office or the staff, and we listen. And we want to run it correctly for the community in the most cost-effective way that we possibly can. And unfortunately, there's some things we have control over and some things that it's just regulation.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. So we have no more members of the public in person or online. So may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move that we close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The hearing is now closed at 6:19 PM. All right. right, moving on to agenda item 6B, discussion and possible adoption of resolution 2023-27, determining whether there was no majority protest of the proposed water rate increases and adopting a water rate schedule and superseding existing rates. Mr. Bartz.
Thank you. I'm going to skip a lot of the background since we've had this discussion, but I do want to just give a timeline of the public meetings and notifications that we've had regarding the rate study. 8/2/2023, we had a public water rate workshop. 8/9/2023, we had a public water rate presentation. 8/25, water rate information, water rate calculator on the website. 8/25, notice of public hearing in the district office and on the district website. And the recommendation is for the board to adopt resolution 2023-27, determining there was no majority protest of the proposed water rate increases and adopting a water rate schedule superseding existing rates.
All right, thank you. All right, do we have any further discussion, questions needed? Deborah?
Other than this hurts. It's a painful thing to go through. Seeing the need and knowing that we have the need and knowing how it's going to affect all of us, it hurts. I wish there was an easier way. That's it.
Okay, Mark?
I have nothing further.
All right, Chuck?
I'm just going to say, Mr. Nord brought up some great points, the state water issues, what's going on there with the Prop 1 bonds and everything else, the feds and hyperinflation and what's going on. I would say get out and vote. That's how you could help us and everybody else. Vote your pocketbook.
Thank you. Greg?
It's always difficult when we look at having to raise rates for our customers. I'm a customer here too, since '93, and raised a family here. But we have a responsibility as a board and the staff that are employed here and our general manager. We've got 353 miles of pipeline to maintenance and take care of. We've got 128 square miles service area. And we have over 7,200 meter connections. And so we have a lot of responsibility to make sure that we have water for drinking purposes, we have water for firefighting purposes, and that we have enough water available to us to meet those demands of our customers and the challenges that come with that. Especially things that are out of our control. Constantly seeing the regulations that get put down, whether it affects water quality, what we have to do to our system, or what it does to our customers in terms of having to raise rates. So it's a difficult time, but I encourage everybody to get involved. And by getting involved, also understanding what it is what we do and the challenges that we have, both in water supply and what it takes to run this operation. Because 90% of what we have is buried infrastructure, so it's out of sight, out of mind. And I like to use this analogy is you don't buy a brand new car and never change the oil in it. And by putting capital improvements into our system, replacing pipelines, increasing them to make fire flow or have sufficient storage for firefighting purposes is very important, and that's what this budget supports. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd really like to thank you for coming out, the public coming out, and thank you for the 11 people that participated.
I think that's 10 now.
What's that?
I think that's 10 protests now.
Oh, okay.
He changed his vote from.
It's all right. I appreciate you coming out and saying your piece. It's important. Just not to be redundant, but, it affects our water bill too. So, we are members of the same public. So, it's not taken lightly. And like Mr. Bartz pointed out, there were a lot of workshops. We requested some changes during the workshop. So, we don't just take the information blindly and make decisions. So we appreciate that. All right. If there are no further questions or comments, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
To adopt.
Oh.
Go ahead. Give me
We
it
need
all.
what the motion is. I'll make a motion to adopt the current, and I don't know the name right now, the current rate as presented by staff.
the proposed water rate increases?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Thank you, the motion passes.
And Nord, thank you for coming. It's great to see you.
It's all right. Mr. Kennedy will yell at me. All right, we will move on to 6C, update on solid waste program implementation. Mr. Burtz.
Very brief update here. Since we just went over this, a few more applications have come in. It's trending the same. CR&R 65%, self-haul 35%. Again, we still have food waste pails inside the district office, and we did bring several with us to Fun Days. Our compost workshop is sold out, so tell your friends to quit calling because I cannot add them to the list. I don't have secret powers. It is full. It filled up in like 2 days. And then we're going to do, back to it, we are going to do another one by popular demand in the spring. And hopefully we can increase the number of attendees. Our upcoming outreach, we're going to be at the Farmers Market booth from now till December. I'm meeting with Kiwanis November 9th, and we'll have another mailer going out in November. So this is a picture I took of the transfer station. Not sure if you can see it, but I can email it to you. So it's still one pile. I had CR&R go by today, and they confirmed, yeah, everything's still going into one pile. There's an optional mixed recycling bin available, but it looks like that's for cans and bottles only. And then I've reached out and requested another meeting with the county, so that is pending, just to get a status update on why they can't track our dump cards and when will they begin enforcing the source separation requirement that they had advertised. I will be applying for a grant, an SB 1383 grant for this fiscal year. They have upped the base award amount to $75,000. Up from the $20,000. I think it's because I complained so much. So I sent in a lot of public comment that they need to update that base award. And that's about it. So any questions?
I did have a few constituents reach out and say, I'm getting these trash containers delivered to my house and I don't want to be CR&R customer and I don't understand why. And I replied, well, did you ever fill out the form that designates yourself as a self-hauler? And they said no.
Well, we actually haven't started the kind of last chance rollout, as I'm calling it. So it might have been a missed delivery, so they should definitely contact us.
And I told them that.
Yes. That happens. So a lot of the streets aren't labeled and the drivers are human. But if that happens, just give us a call and we will correct it. We're not going to start the forced service until first quarter 2024.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. All right, so we will move on to 60, update on the proposed Civic Center and Phelan Park expansion.
And I have nothing to update on that tonight. It's moving along slowly.
All right, thank you. Not that it's moving along slowly, but thank you. All right. Number 7, committee reports. Engineering.
The engineering committee meeting minutes are in the packet if there's any questions, and we meet next Wednesday at 4 o'clock or 4:30? 4:30. 4:30 here, and we discuss the water workings for the district, but we're also going to start looking at basin consumption so that the district can make a presentation to Watermaster.
Thank you. All right, Finance Committee.
Finance Committee meets, and we just changed the date, and I don't remember it, the 24th?
Correct.
All right, Legislative.
We did not have any meetings since our last, so I have nothing to report.
Okay, and Park and Rec, same thing. We did not meet since the last time. And Waste and Recycling.
We meet next Wednesday at 2:30? Okay.
All right, thank you very much. All right, 8, Staff and General Managers Report. Anything to add?
I have nothing to add tonight.
All right, number 9, Directors Reports. Greg?
I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Chuck?
Do we have an HHW event coming up on the 14th?
Yes, I was going to get to that in the next item, but yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have nothing to report.
Right. Mark?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I noticed there, a theme, of course, throughout the evening was inflation. And the Federal Reserve, one of their mandates is to look at inflation, and they project trying to keep it around 2%. That's because there is an actual natural inflation to everything, which is around 2 to 3%. No matter what you do over time, everything seems to go up about that much a year on average. And so if you look at your costs for over a 20-year period and you factor in a 2 to 3% natural inflation, I think you'd probably look at the costs being pretty much that. And I know at certain times it's 6 or 8% like it has been now. It's actually higher, but it's also was zero for essentially for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years maybe. So I know that was a theme tonight, but there is a natural inflation, and fortunately we're kind of stuck with that. So thank you.
Deborah?
Last meeting, I forgot to include that I attended the Wonders of Water at Mojave Water Agency. And they went over water efficiency, particularly on how indoors, how you can reduce your usage. And it was a really good presentation. I recommend people attend the Wonders of Waters when they start offering them next year.
Thank you. All right, and I have nothing to report, so we will move on to 10, correspondence and information. Ms. Sevi?
Yeah, all of our event flyers are in the packet for your review. We're using Eventbrite for signups now. Of course, there is no sign up for the tree lighting ceremony, so make sure you attend that because that one isn't space prohibited. There's some information about our upcoming household hazardous waste event. So the county has all new staff, and they, even though I reached out earlier in the year, when they got their new staff, they forgot to notify us of the event in our community. So we didn't get to put this in our bills, unfortunately, but we have blasted it out on Facebook. We handed it out at Fun Days, and it's on our website. There's an HHW, so your used motor oil, you can bring things like that, to the CR in our yard this coming Saturday from 9 to 1. So take advantage of that. In the event you can't make that one, we have information on our website on other HHW disposal options that are ongoing. And then we do have a low-income water assistance program right now. The information on if you qualify is in here. And we've been giving this out to customers, and we've had a couple utilize it so far. And that is all I have.
Thank you. All right, agenda item 11, were there any prior meeting action items?
Yes, so the fuel storage tank item is going to be on the next meeting agenda. And then Mojave Water Agency is working on scheduling coming out to provide a presentation to the board and the public.
Okay, and current meeting action items?
I have recorded none.
All right. So number 12, setting agenda for next meeting for October 25th. Does anyone have anything they would like to add? No? All right, so with that, we will adjourn the meeting at 6:33 p.m. Thank you.
To close.
Mr. Kennedy, did we still need closed session?
I'll leave that up to your general manager.
He doesn't.
Mr. Manager?
Dawn, we don't need the closed session?
We
We do
think
not need
we
the
do
closed
not.
session.
Okay.
Not very clear.
Where's, I blame it all on Mr. Fish.
We're going to need an agenda.
I just want the record to be clear, since maybe the wording was a little wonky. On the rate resolution, that the action of the board was to adopt resolution number 2023-27.
Yes.
Okay.
I blame that on Greg.
I got big shoulders. This is the first time.
All right. I just want that should be in the record, just to be clear.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, what Steve said.